Most cars don't fail all at once. They wear out quietly. Two cars can leave the factory the same year, with the same engine. One struggles before 150,000 miles. The other keeps going past 300,000, sometimes even 500,000 miles. That difference isn't luck, and it isn't expensive repairs. According to AAA research, most major engine and transmission failures come from long-term wear and heat buildup, not sudden breakdowns. Damage starts years before anything fails. Cars that last manage stress, control heat, and slow wear early, long before warning lights turn on. This video isn't about hacks or guarantees. These are proven habits mechanics see in high-mileage vehicles. If you want simple car advice that actually holds up, consider subscribing. Once you understand where cars really wear out, everything ahead will make sense. Oil is a wear buffer. Engines don't wear out because they get old. They wear out because friction slowly wins. Inside your engine, metal parts are moving thousands of times every minute. The only thing keeping those parts from grinding themselves apart is a thin layer of oil. When that oil is clean and strong, wear stays slow and controlled. When it's dirty or broken down, wear speeds up quietly. Oil doesn't fail only because of mileage. It fails because of heat, short trips, and time. Short drives never fully warm the oil. Traffic keeps temperatures high. Hot climates push oil even harder. All of that stresses oil long before a mileage number is reached. That's why mechanics often open engines that followed the service sticker perfectly, yet still show early wear inside. The schedule looked right, but the driving conditions were harder than the oil could handle. High-mileage engines usually share a simple habit. Their oil was changed based on how the car was actually driven, not just what the reminder said. Owners paid attention to usage, not just numbers. Clean oil cushions bearings, protects timing components, and prevents sludge from forming in tight passages. Over time, that protection adds up. Wear slows down, noise stays low, oil pressure stays stable. And one important thing most people miss: every oil change resets protection. It removes the contamination that fresh oil shouldn't have to fight. This isn't extreme maintenance, it's realistic maintenance. It's one of the quiet reasons some engines keep running smoothly long after others start feeling tired. Cold starts matter more than people think. The most damaging moment for an engine isn't high speed, it's the first minute after startup. When an engine is cold, oil hasn't fully reached every surface yet. Bearings, cams, and cylinder walls are still waiting for full lubrication. During that short window, friction is higher than at any other time. Revving hard or driving aggressively right away forces parts to move before protection is ready. Over time, that repeated stress leaves marks inside the engine that never go away. At the same time, long idling doesn't solve the problem. Idling warms the engine unevenly and allows extra fuel to mix with the oil. That thins the oil and increases wear instead of preventing it. The habit that works best is simple and boring. Start the engine, give it a brief moment to stabilize, then drive gently for the first few minutes. Light throttle allows oil pressure to build properly while the engine warms evenly under normal load. This reduces friction, improves sealing, and protects internal parts during the most sensitive phase of operation. Mechanics notice the difference years later. Engines treated this way sound smoother. They develop fewer cold start noises. They maintain better compression over time. Two identical engines can live very different lives based on this habit alone. One slowly wears itself out early, the other ages quietly and predictably. Cold starts happen every day. How you handle them writes the long-term story of your engine. Quick reminder, subscribe for straightforward car advice that actually works. Transmission longevity is about heat control. Most transmissions don't fail because of mileage. They fail because of heat. Inside the transmission, fluid does more than lubricate. It cools moving parts, controls pressure, and cushions shifts. As long as that fluid stays healthy, wear stays controlled. But once heat breaks it down, damage starts quietly. Despite what many labels suggest, transmission fluid doesn't last forever. Every mile driven adds heat. Stop-and-go traffic, towing, hills, and hot weather all push temperatures higher. Over time, fluid loses its ability to protect internal parts, even though shifting may still feel normal. That's why mechanics often see transmissions fail without warning. The fluid looked fine from the outside, but inside, wear had already been building for years. High-mileage vehicles usually survive because their fluid was refreshed before problems appeared, not after. Not aggressively flushed, just replaced gradually, keeping protection ahead of wear. Driving habits matter just as much. Slamming into reverse, shifting before a full stop, or rushing gear changes sends shock through internal components. Those impacts may feel small, but repeated thousands of times, they shorten transmission life dramatically. Gentle shifts reduce internal stress. Full stops before direction changes protect gears and clutches. These habits don't slow you down in real life, but they slow wear inside the transmission. Mechanics can often tell how a car was driven just by how the transmission behaves at higher mileage. Smooth, consistent shifting almost always points to steady habits and controlled heat. Heat shortens transmission life. Controlled heat extends it. Cooling systems fail slowly, until they don't. Engines don't tolerate overheating. Even once can change their future. The cooling system works quietly in the background, and because it usually does its job well, it's easy to forget about it. But coolant doesn't last forever. Over time, it loses its ability to prevent corrosion and control temperature. As coolant ages, it becomes more acidic. That slowly eats away at aluminum parts, seals, and gaskets from the inside. Hoses harden, small leaks begin, pressure drops slightly. None of this feels urgent, until suddenly it is. Most overheating events aren't random. They're the final moment of a long process that gave warnings along the way. A low reservoir, a faint smell, a trace of residue near a hose or pump. High-mileage engines almost always share one trait: they were never allowed to overheat. Owners who reach extreme mileage treat cooling problems early, while fixes are small. A hose instead of a head gasket, a thermostat instead of a warped engine. Once an engine overheats, metal expands unevenly. Sealing surfaces distort. Damage can happen in minutes that maintenance can't undo. That's why cooling system care isn't about perfection, it's about attention. Mechanics know that engines don't usually die from age. They die when heat finally gets out of control. Keeping the cooling system healthy protects everything else downstream. If an engine stays cool, it gets the chance to age slowly and predictably, the way long-lasting engines always do. How you brake matters more than you think. Most brake systems don't wear out because of mileage. They wear out because of heat. Every time you brake hard at the last second, brake components absorb a massive spike in temperature. Rotors heat rapidly. Pads harden. Over time, repeated heat shock causes warping, glazing, and uneven wear that shortens the life of the entire braking system. What many drivers don't realize is that this heat doesn't just affect brakes. It transfers stress into wheel bearings, suspension components, and even tires. The harder and later the braking, the more force the car has to absorb all at once. High-mileage vehicles are usually driven differently. Owners lift off earlier. They coast smoothly. They slow the car gradually, instead of demanding instant stops. This spreads heat over time instead of concentrating it in one moment. Mechanics notice this immediately. Cars driven this way often still have original calipers, smoother rotors, and more predictable brake feel at high mileage. The car feels calmer because it has lived a calmer life. This habit doesn't mean driving slow. It means driving aware. Early liftoff reduces heat. Reduced heat extends component life, and smoother braking protects far more than just pads and rotors. Parking and shifting discipline. Some of the most expensive wear a car experiences happens when it isn't even moving. Shifting direction before coming to a full stop sends a sudden shock through the drivetrain. Parking without setting the handbrake forces the transmission to hold the vehicle's entire weight, especially on slopes. That stress doesn't feel dramatic at the moment, but repeated over years, it slowly wears down internal parts. Inside the transmission is a small locking mechanism designed to hold a stationary car, not stop a rolling one. When the vehicle's weight rests on that component again and again, wear builds quietly. Mechanics see this damage often, especially in automatic and CVT vehicles, where internal parts are more sensitive to shock. High-mileage cars usually show a different pattern. Their owners slow to a complete stop before changing direction. When parking, they set the handbrake first, let the car settle, and then shift into park. This simple sequence takes only seconds, but it removes constant strain from gears, mounts, and driveline components. Over time, the difference becomes obvious. Cars treated this way shift more smoothly. They don't clunk when coming out of park. The drivetrain feels relaxed instead of stressed. Mechanics can often tell how a car was parked just by how it behaves at higher mileage. Smooth engagement usually means the driver respected the system. Good habits don't feel impressive. They feel uneventful. And that's exactly why cars driven this way last longer than most people expect. High-mileage owners listen early. Cars almost always give warnings before they fail. They just don't do it loudly. The signs are usually small. A new sound during startup. A vibration that wasn't there last month. A faint smell that disappears once the car warms up. Most drivers notice these things and then ignore them because the car still runs. High-mileage owners think differently. When something feels off, they pay attention, not with panic, but with curiosity. they check it early, while the problem is still small, simple, and affordable to fix. Mechanics see this pattern all the time. Vehicles that reach extreme mileage usually weren't in the shop constantly, but when something changed, it was addressed before stress spread. A loose engine mount instead of a broken one, a small coolant leak instead of an overheated engine, a worn belt instead of a roadside breakdown. Warning lights are helpful, but they're late signals. By the time a light turns on, wear has often been happening quietly for weeks or months. Listening early slows that process down and protects the systems around it. The goal isn't to chase perfection or fix things that aren't broken. It's to stop small issues from turning into chain reactions that shorten a car's life. That habit alone explains why some vehicles quietly keep going while others don't. Consistency beats perfection. Cars that last hundreds of thousands of miles aren't taken care of perfectly. They're taken care of consistently. Owners of high-mileage vehicles don't chase every new product or follow extreme schedules. They stick to basics and repeat them year after year. Oil changes happen on time. Fluids are checked and refreshed when needed. Small issues are handled before they grow into big ones. Just as important, they don't panic. Not every sound means failure. Not every vibration needs an immediate repair. High-mileage owners pay attention, but they stay calm. They notice changes instead of reacting emotionally to them. That balance makes a difference. When maintenance is steady, wear stays predictable. Parts age gradually instead of failing suddenly. The car feels familiar, not fragile. Mechanics see this pattern all the time. Vehicles that reach extreme mileage usually weren't overworked or over-maintained. They were simply cared for the same way, over and over, without skipping steps. Longevity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from showing up consistently, mile after mile, and letting time work in your favor instead of against you. The final thought: reaching 500,000 miles isn't guaranteed. Every vehicle is different. But cars that last that long don't get there by accident. They survive because stress is managed, heat is controlled, and wear is slowed down before damage begins. The habits you've heard today aren't dramatic, but they're powerful when repeated over time. If your car already has high mileage, these habits matter even more. And if it doesn't yet, this is how you protect its future. Which habit are you already doing, and which one needs more attention? If you value calm, real-world mechanic insight like this, consider subscribing, and feel free to leave a comment with your car's current mileage. Those stories always tell the truth.